Welcome back. This is Daybreak, and thank you for staying with us. We are talking about the warning by the Kenya Met Department over the anticipated El-nino rains and the authorities that have been urged to take seriously the alert by the Met Department. This also coming from environmentalists who are calling for adequate preparations and planning both at the national and the county governments across the 47 devolved units. With me in studio is Roslyn Omolo, who is the County Executive Committee member for the Health Docket in Homa Bay County, as well as Venant Ndegela, who is the Manager, Emergency Preparedness, Kenya Red Cross, and Mary Kilavi, who is the Assistant Director at the Kenya Meteorological Department. Before I go to Roslyn Omolo, Venant, you earlier on said that you have a target approach of sending people messages, in this case SMS, text, yes, to the people. I mean, of the 25 counties that are projected to experience the El-nino rains as per the Met Department prediction, how many people are you targeting, and are there specific counties that border on the red line, those on the yellow, and those on the green?
Yeah, thank you. Within these 25 counties, as per the KMD forecast, of course, they are indicating the counties in northeastern Kenya, eastern, southeastern, and southern Kenya. They are likely going to receive enhanced rains. They say 85% above normal, likely to receive above normal rains. So these are the ones which we are seeing they are likely going to be to have the severe effects. And then there are some counties still part of northern Kenya, some central Rift Valley, and a little bit of southwestern Kenya. They are also second in that level of intensity. So in terms of the planning for the SMSs, as I said, the first SMSs were to early warn, to give the early warning to the communities that this is coming. We went for the SMSs because this is from past feedback. This is very personal. You reach out now to the person himself, and in most cases it is the heads of the families, and they realize, yes, there's something which is coming and I need to do something about it. Mm-hmm. And this is on the effort of having the community to remain central in the whole thing. So we feel they'll take steps to start aligning themselves with the administration plans, as we have had from the county level. Mm-hmm. So the planning, therefore, is informed by the analysis of the likelihood of the effects. The first SMSs, which are likely to go out by the end of this week, is going to be across all these counties. Okay. And
all the 25?
Yes. Okay. So the next ones, and it is on a footprint basis. Footprint here is they'll target those areas which we feel they are more at risk. Yeah, they are most at risk. For example, the way they are settled, if they are settled on river basins, these are the ones we are going to target first. And then the second one, as I said, is to alert them. Now this is coming. Take action as per the plan. Mm-hmm. If you had an evacuation plan, this is the time to go. So again, it is going to be informed by the analysis of how exposed, how at risk are these settlements. Mm-hmm. If we feel some villages are not very much at risk, they are not going to receive. Okay. However, sometimes you may not really control as they release, but we are targeting informed by the pre-existing conditions. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Roslyn, Venant talks about engagement with the local community. I mean, as a county government, you enjoy the mandate of the people, and you're in close proximity to the people, for example, in the case of Homa Bay County. Mm-hmm. What's your level of engagement on day-to-day basis on this? Is there that symbiotic communication that they give you feedback, you convey them the message, they give you the feedback, and how are you progressing in terms of your preparedness level to that effect?
Thank you. So, first of all, the idea that Venant brings out is really noble. The challenge with information in this day and age is always miscommunication and also, misinformation and disinformation. So in as much as we know that they're going to have targeted recipients of the messages, there are also those who will get the messages anyway. This is the age of screenshots. I will take a screenshot that was sent to me, as he rightly says, the footprint shows that I am at risk, but Mary is not at risk. But I'll still end up getting this message anyway because of the age we live in. So for us, as a county government, it is our responsibility, it's our social responsibility to ensure that our citizens are informed, and not just informed, but given the right information. And so we will use our normal administrative structures. So we have ward level administrative structures. We have ward admins, and these are the people. Homa Bay has 40 wards. So what we do is we are going to have communication around the ward units, because this is information that's verified, it's correct, and it's packaged in a certain way. So we are developing communication packs. Our Department of Communication is working on this, on the messaging, and also on the target population, so that we ensure that these people get the messages they are meant to get, so that we avoid having alarmist communication, because one of the things that really happens again in such a situation is alarmist information. Secondly, as I said earlier, it's a multi-agency approach. So again, the chiefs are not do not work with us as a county government. They are under the national government, but we are working with the chiefs because it has to reach. We have to ensure that the communication reaches all levels. So the way we have the task force at the county level, we have it at the sub-county level, all the way to the ward level. And so we are working together in terms of this communication. The only thing that I would like us to probably continue working together, because as I like to say, there is no separate Homa Bayan, so to speak, for Governor Wanga, and a separate one for the national government. We are all serving the same residents. It would be easier going forward for us to manage our communication in one place, as one, so that if we say, if the Kenya Red Cross is the one that's going to send the SMSs, then we've sat down and we've developed the messages together with the county, with the meteorological department, so that we are not cross-feeding each other, but we are cooking the food together and then agreeing. So now, because Kenya Red Cross is the one that has received the support for the bulk SMSing. So as a county government, we feel this is what needs to go to our people. From the meteorological department, they say this is the information we have in terms of the lake rising in this area and flooding and everything, so that we approach this as one. Some of the problems that we've had, not in this case, but in other instances, is when we are different agencies, we are doing the same thing, but we are approaching it from a different perspective. So ours would actually be at the point of verification of information, as well as the recipients of the message. All right,
to, buffer any attempt of miscommunication and, as you have said, raising the alarm over a non-issue. Mary, what we're talking about now is the preparedness level. And in the case of the drought situation, there were reports which were equally issued by other state agencies like the National Drought Management Authority and other non-state actors that were never acted upon, which led to some extent, to an extent, the degree of the catastrophe that we have witnessed in terms of the ravaging effects of drought were water to be harvested, for example, in the previous rainy season. In this case, then, if, for example, the counties are not putting in place or there are no preparedness level, both at the national and the county governments, for the El-nino case that your organization has said we anticipate it from this month until early next year, what will be the consequences if no preparedness levels are put in place or measures?
As you've said about the drought, it's true we witnessed very devastating consequences. And with the drought, it's slow onset, so it gives you time to prepare. And if that couldn't happen, you can imagine how much worse it would get for something that is fast. A fast onset like flash flooding or heavy rainfall that is expected within a very short time. So it is even more important that the kind of coordination that they're talking about actually happens and action is taken well in advance, or rather, because the time taken is the lead time is really short for some of the very extreme rainfall events that might happen. Then it's much more imperative that we see that coordination taking place and action being taken.
All right. And is the level of engagement sufficient? As an organization, when you issue these reports, they need action to be taken. From your, observation, from your analysis, is the engagement between state and non-state actors adequate to what you foresaw as the anticipated El-nino to stave off that catastrophe that we have just talked about?
Well, I don't have numbers to back it,
yeah,
but going by what we've seen in the past, it looks like it's still not at the level that it should be for enough preventative actions to be taken place.
Oh, okay. Venant, I'm looking at the list, and the counties are many. Of course, across different parts of the country: Siaya, Kisumu, Homa Bay, Migori, Kisii, Kakamega, Nakuru, Narok, and these are the counties that, like Laikipia West, will be, according to the Met Department, significantly affected. And notably, several counties, according to the report by the Kenya Met Department, have already initiated proactive measures to enhance the disaster preparedness. But as an organization, one of the issues that you had managed to convey the message on or in regards to that was the tree cover and our cover in terms of the trees in the country and our forest. What then, in this case, would be some of the basic steps that the communities at the lowest level of the units in the counties can take in the case of this preparedness level as their own initiatives? Yeah,
thank you. Again, before I comment on that, I want to say something around coordination. This time, we are seeing a lot of improvement around coordination, which is giving us a lot of optimism, because it's like we have learned as a country that once we receive the information, we need to do something. We have seen a lot of attention, as you can see evidence here from Homa Bay, where they started sitting and putting the stakeholders together to coordinate the efforts, plan together, and things like that. So across the country, we have seen that, because we are sitting in most of these county steering groups, county disaster management committees, and even at the national level, there are various forums. So by the fact that maybe not much resources have been aligned, but there is a lot of a very big conversation ongoing. Yeah. So within the counties around the environment, we, of course, working with the county committees, we have identified early actions which needs to be done to try and lessen the impact of these floods if they happen. First, and very importantly, is identifying the risk areas and what is likely going to hit. For example, we have done an early action protocol, a floods early action protocol, which we did sometimes in 2021. Okay. Some of the counties in the River Nzoia, Athi and Tana basin, around 6 counties. This is meant to put in place support early actions, or to support communities do early actions, so that they can lessen the impact. And of course, align very well, very closely with the information from KMD. So what we do is we trigger the communities to do those early activities. For example, identify the families who are likely to be affected. Then the next is, for example, unblocking the drainages. We come and put some little resources for cash for work, for example, where they work and they get cash, and then they unblock the drainage. And then, as mentioned by Roslyn, identifying the evacuation centers and also the evacuation routes, and also, most importantly, strengthen those evacuation centers with common facilities like toilets, water storage systems, And these are some of the early actions which are very much linked to the environment they are living in. The matters around the tree cover is now taking advantage of the rains to be able to plant. And the early actions, therefore, is to prepare the seedlings for now. So most of these early actions have been triggered, and they are ongoing in most of these high-risk counties.
Okay. Rosalind, in also preparing the mindset of the people, as you have mentioned, we talked about the possible relocation. But have you put in place, or are there temporary makeshift camps or homes where they will be able to stay for that period? Is that also a factor that you have considered as part of your preparedness plan?
Thank you. So this is now ongoing. When we launched the plan, we had several action points. So this week and next week, the teams are going to go around to identify these centers. Of course, the most natural ones are normally schools. And we hope that there will be no interruption, there will be no disruptions of the school calendar because of the need to host families and communities in these places. Yeah. So we normally use social halls, we use churches, we use schools. So these have already been mapped out. And that's why we're saying now we are coming up with the issue of analyzing suitability. So how suitable is this? If we don't have certain amenities, what can we do to speed up the acquisition of those amenities? The biggest challenge normally, again, is communication, because sometimes people ask, you are moving me away from my home, and then what? So it's not just the initial moving people, the relocation. It's also the looking at the possibility of the relocation back to the homes. Will there be a home afterwards, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of conversation going on, and I think Venant and his team are better prepared at this than us in terms of managing the psychological state of people, making sure that what they are thinking in the right way, making sure that we are telling them this is very temporary, it's as temporary as it can be, and ensuring that even if you're relocating, wherever you're taking them, there's a little bit of suitability, because as you know, there's also the issue of social mobilization and social mobility. What will this do to my family? How will this impact us as a family? Because a lot of times it's not possible to move people as a family. So when you don't have enough room for accommodation, and Venant to explain this much better than I do, you just say this area is for women, this area is for children, this area is for men. But people need to be psychologically prepared for this. So again, what we are going to do as a county, we are going to involve the community as much as possible. It is our responsibility to give them the guidance. But because we as a county, Homa Bay, we are very big on public participation. So when you involve people in a lot of these decisions, then you find it's much easier, and they actually become your ambassadors, rather than you being the ones giving direction and saying, this is what we are going to do, from this village we'll move you here. They can actually help you explore the options and come back with the less resisted option, and the option that works best for all of us. Again, we're also looking at proximity to other amenities like hospitals, because again, when people are not in their natural areas of residence, then certain things are bound to happen. For instance, Homa Bay is a malaria, it's a malaria endemic zone. So again, malaria and rains are synonymous with one another. So we expect a rise in cases of malaria. So we want to ensure that people are as close as possible to health centers and health facilities and so on and so forth.
Thank you. Before I come to you, Mary, let's also sample the feedback of the viewers, and probably some who might have questions as to what they want to understand and further emphasis on. And here's what you're saying on X, formerly Twitter.
Can't believe it.
That is the hashtag Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Engineer Lazaro says slow pace of preparedness will amount to corruption, unwanted destruction of property and loss of lives. Government should focus more on flood-prone areas around the lake regions, the lines of powerful lakes like cyclones, Nyakol, he says, in bracket slide areas of Moranga County. It's, as Will says, what kind of collaboration and partnership arrangements are in place with the media, especially the community radio stations in flood-prone areas like Budalangi, to sensitize and alert the people of the impending dangers? Babu Michel K says, due to the expected El Nino rains in the country, there should have been a clear roadmap and engagement between the county governments and on how, he says, to reduce the effects of and harvest the water for further use in different economic activities. Sir Nixon Dugure says, I hope El Nino preparedness is dominated by actions much more than just conversations. For instance, that Budalangi and Muranga now fully protected from dikes and gabions from perennial floods and mudslides, respectively. Honorable Lillian Sioe says El Nino rains are inevitable. Many counties in Kenya, which typically face the adverse effects of El Nino rains, remain unprepared as usual. We will hold them accountable for this lack of readiness, starting with the Meteorological Department. Brian Chemo says the country is just warning Kenyans, but not investing in infrastructure projects that enhance resilience to El Nino-related disasters, building flood defenses, improving water management systems, and constructing drought-resistant agricultural practices. Okelo Mwalimu says, a state of preparedness for any natural disaster. I live alone El Nino, he says, okay, is very shaky, even though Kenyans are skeptical about the accuracy of the Kenya Met Department's forecast. No one seems to be ready for this phenomenon. It so happens accept massive disruption to transportation and farming. Bob Otieno Wino says, we are still prepared against El Nino. People living along hillsides and waterlogged areas whenever we experience floods haven't been moved to safer places. Dams have not been constructed like Kano Plains in Kisumu County. Those are some of your feedback here on the broadcast, and Kenyans raising concerns also as to the accountability level, which they have the right over. You had a point before we proceed to Venant?
Maybe to comment on what...
Yes, please, yeah, because I had to take the feedback, so yes. I had to cut you short. Please proceed.
About community radio.
Yes.
We have that in some of the disaster-prone areas, like Budalangi, as a person mentioned. And that has proved to be really useful because within a short time you can communicate to the people on the ground and tell them this is what is expected. In fact, it's one of the places where we have a flood early warning system, where the river levels are monitored, and a combination of the monitored levels and the forecast gives us a good early warning about 3 days before. So it's possible to know at what, on what date, for example, depending on the forecast, that the dikes are likely to be topped. So that information is communicated through community radio. It's proved to be quite effective.
Okay.
And the same in Muranga too for landslides.
I mean, when we talk about this, or have this debate, ladies and gentlemen, and Mary, still on you, there certainly is one aspect that is a constant element, which is climate change. And from your pattern, because what we talked about earlier on, the debates we had towards the end of last year and early this year, were the consequences of the drought across the country and the livelihoods that were affected, the livestock that had been, affected as a result of the drought, and to an extent that human lives were on the line. Given what you have observed from your weather patterns, is this related to climate change? And if so, what are some of the awareness levels that ought to be created also at the community level, using that method that you have said of the avenue, the community radios, for the communities to take action at their own level of ensuring that they do not experience the adverse effects of the same?
Yes, as you've mentioned, it's true that in the recent years we have seen a lot more frequency in terms of extreme events, be it droughts or floods, and that has now been attributed to climate change. And the frequency and magnitude of these extreme events is projected to actually increase in time. So I think there's it's very important that communities are actually educated on this, awareness is raised, that we are likely going to see this happening much more frequently, because like I said, we just come from a very devastating flood.
Yeah.
I mean, a drought.
Yeah.
There's hardly been time for the country to recover, and now we're experiencing, we anticipate to experience very extreme kind of rainfall. So it's very important that communities are educated on this, and to the extent possible, look for ways to actually build resilience.
Yeah.
Such that we are not jumping from one extreme to the other, one form of devastation into another. So that's really important.
All right. Venant, are we looking into the danger of food insecurity here in the case of flooding? And what are and how can the advantage that comes with the rains be tapped into, especially for counties in the Northern Frontier District, in terms of harvesting the water? And are those initiatives being taken from your observations? Are they put into practice?
Yeah, thank you. Food security is one of the entities which are likely to experience both negative effect and a little bit of positive effects from the El-nino rains. Yes, there are some plans, there are some activities which have already been put in place. Again, one of the negative part is likely destruction of post-harvest, increase of post-harvest losses because of crops getting spoiled while still in the farms, just ready for harvesting, and even sometimes after they have been harvested, like the maize in our food basket. There is a lot of planning around supporting drying of maize, or rather faster drying of maize for storage in the North Rift. Also, there are a lot of efforts. For example, we are supporting farmers with plantings, short maturity planting seeds, focusing in some of the areas which have perennial food insecurities, like the eastern and coastal parts of the country. Okay. Because the rains are going to be there at least 3 months. So we are going to support at least 10,000 farmers with maize planting seeds, cowpeas, and also cassava cuttings, so that they can be able to take advantage of this. So yes, there is some attention to this in terms of getting the positive parts of the El-nino. And about water harvesting, there are efforts in most of these arid counties around desilting of the water pans, so that they can be able to collect more water. They can collect water this time and take advantage of the surface runoff to save the water for later. Yes.
Okay. Yes, Rosin.
Thank you. I want to comment a bit on the feedback and just say two things. One of the things that really throws off a government, and when I talk about government, is both levels of government, both the national and county governments, is such a thing as what we are facing now. Because the first thing that's affected is budget implementation. So when you look at it, for instance, as a county, as Homa Bay, we are going to lose a lot of revenue. Some of our markets are not going to build. It's not going to be possible for activities to go on. So we lose revenue in those places. When we talk about hospitals, this is the season when we as a department are going to give a lot of waivers. And this I can confirm across all the 25 counties that will be adversely affected. Okay. Because there are some people who come to hospital and you now can't charge them. In terms of infrastructure, as they say, it's not really possible to keep the pace, because most of the roads in the counties are rural roads. You can gravel a road nicely today, tomorrow it rains and the road is washed away. But then when it comes to, someone talked about the role of the government. I am a citizen. Yes, I'm a government employee, but I'm also a citizen. And this is the time I would want to ask Kenyans. There's the responsibility of the government, but there's the responsiveness of an individual. The meteorological department has carried out its responsibility. They have warned us. The rains are coming. Kenya Red Cross has put in place what they're doing. As a county government, we have done our bit. So it just also it begs the question, what is your responsiveness as an individual? What are you going to do with all this information that has been put together for purposes of informing us of what is facing us? If we could work together, both of us, both us as citizens and also government, I think we'll be able to reach some.
Okay. Yes. Final comment, Mary, to you. Given that we have put all this into context from the report, the action points, and going forward, the coordination needed, and that to be chaired by the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, who yesterday deliberated on that forum for the emergency responses. Then, at what point is the significance of this going to be seen, in the sense that we become food secure because of the water if harvested according to what Venant had said? Proper procedures are laid down by the counties that lie on the frontier, for example, and that have experienced the drought, and to be used for farming, to be food secure, so that going forward you have a populace that's food secure and no problems will arise as such in future.
Well, it's difficult to tell at what point that is going to happen. But what is sure is that, of course, the future is becoming much more uncertain under climate change. And that means that we have to prepare for the worst-case scenario, that the level at which our preparation should be, such that we are able to bounce off back to normal situation when after an extreme event happens.
And isn't it worrying when you have, for example, the report that you have issued on the 30th of August, in that press, in that news conference, which had highlighted the anticipated El-nino, and thereafter the rush was what needs to be done to forestall the consequences that come with it. The drought one you have issued, I mean, isn't it a concern that this is likely one that borders on consequences on the population, from drought to what you now have as anticipated El-nino rains, and largely because of climate change? Are there actions that the government, both at the counties and at the national, need to do to play their part of ensuring that I mean, they have a role in mitigating the effects of climate change on the population?
Okay, one of the reasons why sometimes action is hardly taken is because there's hardly any finances that are dedicated to forecasted events, and maybe that is something that both levels of government need to look into, because it's at this point that now people are beginning to mobilize resources, which means they were not there. So it's actually being advocated by I think some of the humanitarian agencies, that if government can set aside finances whose release can be triggered by a forecast, then it means that no time is wasted between the time when the forecast is issued and the actions. So I think that is one thing that could help the country.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Bernard, final word.
Yeah, thank you. We are here. Unfortunately, we again have to review our plans around the possibility of El-nino floods effects. And again, at least 95,000 households, around 500,000 Kenyans, are likely going to feel the effects one way or the other. And there's enough coordination platforms. We know what we are expected to do. We believe most of the Kenyans have something to be able to support. They can do something about it in order to alleviate the suffering, in order to reduce the effects for those Kenyans who are predisposed. We want to call to all of us to come, the private sector, everybody, to come and join those coordination platforms at the county level and also at the national level, so that we can move together. Of course, a lot is happening in terms of the early actions, but we feel more needs to be done.
Okay.
We still have at least 3 weeks by the time we get the real effects of the floods, and we can do something as at now. We are, of course, working with our traditional partners. We have put in place materials to support 150,000 people, but more needs to be done so that we can lessen the impact as much as possible.
All right. Thank you. Yes, briefly, Roslyn, as we finish up.
I think there is a lot of hope. We are not in that much of a dark place. The government, through the in conjunction with the World Bank, has the financing of locally led climate action. And I know they've been working with counties. As Homa Bay, we are recipients of this funding and this support. And basically what it does is it helps us to skew our budgets towards climate-led action, so that whatever it is that we are thinking of it in terms of how do we mitigate climate change. So I think we just need to do our part, and as Mary said earlier, have more investment, more financial investment in mitigating climate change by taking action in the right places.
Thank you.
Can I add one small thing?
Yes, briefly.
We mentioned earlier, I think Roslyn mentioned, likelihood of a lot of mental health challenges as we move, especially for those in the high risk. We have a number, 1199, which is toll-free across the country. Kenyans can call anytime for any information around these El-nino floods. If they have any issues around MHPSS, we can also align counseling on this line.
Thank you. Your time is all appreciated. Roslyn Omolo is the County Executive Committee member, the Health Docket, Homa Bay County. Thank you for your time. Venant Ndegila is the Manager, Emergency Response, Kenya Red Cross, and to Mary Kilavi, who is the Assistant Director, the Kenya Meteorological Department. Your time is all appreciated, ladies and gentlemen. When we get back from the break, we talk about women in technology and the founder of a company that seeks to connect the youth to technology-related jobs by virtue of understanding data and the importance of the same in a contemporary society that is data-driven and all professions that rely on it. We'll be talking more about that after the break here on the broadcast. The hashtag on Twitter or X is Daybreak. More after this.